Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 141, The Voice. And as you can see, we're sitting down, but we're not in chairs that can swivel. And yes, no one is singing. You don't have to sing in the vlog this week, and trust us, thankfully, none of us are going to sing for you either. But this is a fascinating session that emerged via a series of requests when the wonderful Tiffany, who I'm about to introduce to you shortly, and I did a horizon session, so a professional development session for, I think it was PhD students and honours students and students moving into research. So we'll talk about how we got to this request for The Voice, but firstly let me introduce my friends. These wonderful women could change your life today. And you know what? They're certainly going to change your voice. So Tiffany Knight is soon to be Dr. Tiffany Knight, and we're going to meet her again. We're going to meet her again to talk about her thesis and so forth for our Christmas edition. So we'll talk more about Tiffany as a researcher, scholar and gentlewoman shortly. But the bit of her expertise we're going to use today is Tiffany is an acclaimed actor, an award-winning actor, and in fact you won a fantastic award for the best performance as a woman in Adelaide, I think about 3.5 minutes ago. So this is an award-winning actor, remarkable. But part of her job is also vocal training and providing the skills that enable a performance. So we're going to really use that data set and that skill base today. And my other friend, my sister from another mister, I can't tell you how much I adore this woman, is Lisa Warren. Now, Lisa does a lot of things. She runs me, and you can imagine how hard that is as a job. Lisa runs me, but she also runs a lot of our special projects in the Office of Graduate Research. But we learn a lot about Adelaide when I tell you about some of the jobs that this wonderful woman did before she came to Flinders University. And get ready for this. Lisa was the first female sound engineer in South Australia in the private sector. Wow. So we've got something incredibly important to talk about with these two great women to think about on both sides of the microphone, if you will. Let's talk about the voice and how we enable the best voice for you. Because a voice matters in life, but it matters in teaching, in conference presentations, in every type of mechanism and avenue and place where you need to communicate ideas to an audience. The channel for that is your voice. And what I'd also say is your voice is incredibly precious. So we're going to talk about this incredible organ that we have and how we make the best use of it as a researcher. Are we excited?
Totally excited.
Oh, thanks, Melly.
I'm very excited.
When she starts laughing, I'm just going to lose the will to live here. But what I did find amazing, though, Tiff, when we did that Horizon presentation, I don't know what we were expecting, but were you sort of amazed that the students who were talking with us and just speaking, their voice was almost locked into their throat. So they were trying to sort of express themselves, and it was almost this silent, locked-in voice. So that's why this vlog, I think, was always going to happen. So first question to both of you, I think, and that is why you think the voice matters in terms of a career, particularly conveying your research. Do you want to start maybe with the research tip, and then we'll go to Lisa? So why the voice matters?
Oh, I think it matters because we live in a digitized age, in a globalized world where everyone can communicate to everyone through this amazing medium that we're talking about today. And as you have said many times, we're in a time of labor surplus. So it doesn't really matter how great your research is if you aren't able to communicate it, because there's always going to be someone who has more facility, more training, more technique. But I think on top of that, what the voice does is it shows, the voice imprints your identity, you know? And so I think what your voice tells a listener is what your emotional state is. So if you are, you might have a lot of fantastic knowledge and research to impart, but if you're constrained by your nerves, we just tune out. And similarly, if you have somebody who's working too hard and too big and pushing to cover their nerves, Donald Trump might not be a good example of this, pushing too much all the time, we tune out again. So when the voice is in balance, and it's reflecting someone who is confident and centered, we instinctively are drawn to that person. We have a relationship with that person and we trust them. So I think that's one of the key reasons.
Oh wow, so the voice as a relationship builder. That's fantastic. So Lisa, where were you on that? Wasn't that powerful? So
absolutely.
That builds a connection. What do you think on this?
Oh, absolutely. If you everybody feels the same way. If you've gone to see a performance or you're listening to a lecture, or if someone's really nervous or their voice is locked, the audience members tend to focus on probably feeling embarrassed for the person or focus on their emotional state rather than what they're actually saying. So the voice is really important if, to keep the nerves at bay, to be able to make a connection, make an emotional connection with an engagement with the audience.
And getting an audience relaxed too, because maybe the point is how we convey content is making everybody calm, that the speaker, whoever that speaker is in control of themselves, in control of the environment, so you can actually relax and engage with the ideas, the content, if you will, rather than the form. So that the voice is really the channel, the medium for that control and that calmness. And you almost would say the voice creates a context, doesn't it?
That's interesting. Yeah. Kristen Linklater, she's a voice teacher, one of the people that I draw on. She says, and I got a quote here for you, the natural voice is transparent. It reveals, not describes, inner impulses of emotion and thought directly and spontaneously. The person is heard, not the person's voice. So in this context, I would say the content is heard instead of the voice or the performance screening that.
So if you get the voice right, people don't think about the voice,
exactly.
They just accept the voice and deal with the content. If there's something weird going on with the voice, they go, I wonder what's happening with the voice, and ignoring the content. This has changed my life already. And I'm going to push Tiff a bit hard now, because what I wanted in this vlog is I want every single person watching this to change something almost immediately in their life. So I'm going to put hashtag no pressure, Tiff, but to actually think about, so if something that Tiff can teach us right now, one quick and dirty tip, if you like, that can change somebody's voice right now. Is there something like that
I do. I prepared one in advance.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the biggest thing I would suggest for people at home. Yawn. Yawn frequently, not a polite little behind your yawn, but a great big full-bodied like embrace your exhaustion. Embrace it, because when you yawn, what happens is that you fill your lungs with oxygen, you reboot, you lift your soft palate, you loosen your jaw, and so the sound comes directly from your diaphragm up and out and open, and you could hear how my pitch,
absolutely.
I'm playing with my whole pitch doing that.
Yes.
So yawning is rebooting everything, and it's pleasurable. And the voice is a sensual thing. We should be able to enjoy it and play with it to use it. So I'm all about the pleasure.
We're going to take that home and use that later. That's fantastic. Can I also say, when you yawned like that, I became sort of slightly fixated and obsessed, and I'll replay this on multiple occasions, can I say to you. But the amazing thing is your neck and the muscles in your neck changed.
Yeah, right.
Now, what did they tense and then relax, do you think?
That's exactly right.
So it's almost like sort of lifting a weight. So you're doing a bicep curl, you've lifted a weight when you yawn, and then actually you retract it and you stretch it.
And it releases, because we build so much tension in our shoulders. That's where we hold anxiety. A lot of people, especially in our sedentary lifestyle, we spend a lot of time doing this, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other point, is sitting up straight and finding your posture, finding that direct alignment from your sit bones all the way up through the back of your neck, because then you're letting your breath drop down into your center and it's coming up and straight out and open. So yawning and stretching automatically aligns everything for you anyway. And then and it makes you feel good. It wakes you up. It wakes up your mind as well as your voice.
I'm going to be doing that most of the rest of
I
today.
will too. I want to just...
Yes, I just want to too, but then there's a camera. Whatever Tiff does, I normally naturally follow her. So I went, no, I better not do. But can I say, how many of you have actually had a good go with that? That's terrific, and that will be transformed. Because as I said, I was watching your body, and it did change. It stretched. It lengthened. And so my next question is, I suppose, again to Tiff, what can we work on? Is there a skill that we can work on day upon day upon day to do more long-term change and improvement? So that's the short-term. And I don't want to tell you what to do, but for example, you talked about the breath. Is there some way we can do that sort of work?
Connect long-term to breath?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, so just to sort of contextualize it a little bit.
Yeah.
We are all born with this, like it's the first thing we do is we make noise, we phonate. We take a breath in and then we release it on sound, and babies can do that ad nauseum without any damage to their voice. And they can also communicate so many things without language. They can communicate if they need to be cleaned or fed or soothed or, I won't say disciplined, but at times that's what you feel like you want to do. We can do all those things, and it's societal pressures that compress that down. So the social pressures of being told, boys don't cry, or girls shouldn't be loud, or we shouldn't talk back. These social pressures compress down our thoughts and compress our voice. And then societal pressures compress our body too. So the sedentary lifestyle gets us into these habits where our posture is no longer aligned. Yeah. So longer term, I would say, the way for you to think about playing with your voice is to give yourself permission to play again, to sing. Singing connects. Sing in the shower. Sing when you go for a walk, when you're thinking about your research. Take a break and go outside. Connect with your breath. Yoga is a great thing to do because it automatically aligns your posture, and it is breath. It's all conditioned on breath. So if you're a yoga practitioner, think about exhaling, vocalizing your exhale, because then you're finding that connection between the breath, the body, the voice, and the mind, and they're all working together.
Because that's the om moment, absolutely. And I suppose one other thing I'd say that I was aware of in that Horizon gig too, Tiff, is our wonderful students were speaking from their throat. The characteristic of great speakers is that they speak from their stomach. The great singers speak from their diaphragm. So the reason why I can speak ad infinitum for days without impacting on my voice of any kind is I actually don't speak from my voice. I speak from down here. And so I can be incredibly loud, and I know that'll be a surprise to you, with no damage to my throat at all, because my throat's only there to vibrate the vocal cords. Everything else is coming from down here, and that's where the power comes from, not the throat.
Yeah, and then you're resonating that sound. So the sound comes through the vocal cords and it bounces off the hard surfaces in Tara's body, or anyone's, but Tara's a great example of it.
But thank you for saying you take hard surfaces rather than soft surfaces.
Well, they are. The vocal resonating chamber, the mouth, is a great big place to vibrate, to get those harmonics happening. But if you get floppy and your soft palate goes down, it goes up into your nose and it gets muffled, and it also just disappears up into those smaller chambers. So we're looking for that space and size by opening your jaw, and again the yawn opens the jaw, it lifts the soft palate, gets that resonating capacity, so you don't have to push from your throat.
And I'd like to apologise to everyone from New South Wales for the joke I'm about to tell, but of course that's the New South Wales accent, isn't it? So the New South Wales accent is all from the nose, so it's they get the breath from the throat, and then it goes straight to the nose.
Yeah.
And so that's Sydney, the Sydney accent. So the West Australian accent, which is mine, the mouth opens more. Probably there's not many ideas that are coming through the mouth. That's the nature of being a Western Australian. But we can project with random vowels. No content, but that's right. But New South Wales is from the nose.
Well,
Sydney.
This is a debate. Like, I have had this experience talking to Australians from different regional areas who always say, that region over there, they're the ones that do that sound.
Yeah.
Ours don't. So that's a different discussion for another time.
That's fine. Speaking of a beautiful voice, should we use our wonderful South Australian here, the real South Australian here? And look, let's move to the other side of the microphone, Lise, because you were the great person who, you were the other side of the glass. Mm-hmm. So you were in the studio looking at the person, the vocal talent that's about to come in. And for you, what made good vocal talent? What made a good voice for you on radio and in sonic platforms?
I think that a good voice, it's different. It is that being able to throw your voice, being able to speak from the body and not from the throat. So even when you're recording, because recording you can pick up more sound much more easily. So you're not performing to a big open space, you're just recording in a small area. But it was still diction, it was still, you need clarity, you need to be able to understand what the person's saying, despite having an accent, despite any kind of sort of categorisation that we would use. So you might have somebody come in and they would make fantastic voiceover talent. Then you would have somebody else come in and they might make great character talent. So it was a completely different thing depending on the voice. So one of my jobs was to audition new talent at the studio. So people would ring up and say, I'd love to be a voiceover, what can I do? And I'd bring them in, give them a script, an old script that they would read from. I'd give them a little bit of direction and all that sort of thing, and we would then record them, categorise them, and then if then an ad or a job would come up in the future where I thought that person might be perfect for that role. It could be you have a 60-year-old woman who has a child's voice, who does have a child voice, but they still throw from their body, not from their throat. Because if you, as well, for a performance, if you continually throw from your throat, you're going to lose your voice. And if the performance is long or intense for any reason, if there's a lot of shouting, if there's a lot of intense emotion, then you'll lose it. You'll lose the voice, you'll lose the momentum, and you'll lose the pitch and the timbre.
And you lose the job.
Crucial. And I mean, you've picked up another point that again I hadn't thought of, which is why you're both amazing, is that what I would call, this would be my phrasing, I think I've just invented this, but a continuity of delivery too. Yeah. That your voice, different I think if you're a character actor, but your voice really shouldn't change, because in some ways for academics our voice is our brand.
Yeah.
So we've got to have a continuity of delivery. So our voice can't change. I wonder who that is. So you've got your base voice, the Tiffany voice. You can put on multiple voices, but as an academic, our voice is our brand too.
Yeah. Well, one of our jobs was to, if you close your eyes, you can actually pick someone's voice through. And most people can do it, but if you can, if somebody's voicing a documentary, for example, you can't see their face. Most people can say, that's Richard Attenborough.
Yeah.
Or so it is a brand. It is a very big brand.
And so that's something really for all of us to develop as academics, I think. I mean, the vlog that's going to come after this one, I'm going to talk about audiobooks and academics. And that's where that continuity of branding is incredibly important, because you're claiming your sonic brand, which then leads into your author platform and indeed your profile in terms of impact and engagement as a researcher.
Can I just add, I
Please.
think what's really important to that is I think there's a notion that there's a perfect voice out there that you're searching for, which is not the case. I mean, it used to be that actor trainers students were going to drama school so we could all speak like the Queen. And now we are embracing diversity in voices. We're embracing diversity in accents. What we're really looking for in voice work is to find maximum effect with minimum effort and clarity. But we want to hear the authentic you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when we are doing our work on audiobooks, I'm going to actively encourage us as scholars. We are the people that read our refereed articles or our short books. It's part of our branding, but people want to hear the researcher speak. So why this vlog exists is so that you can get in touch with that voice, you can have that continuity of delivery, and you can convey to your audience what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. But Lisa, the second question is the negative one, and you and I are never negative people. We are so optimistic. We are glass half full, so hard glass half full. But what did you see? What went wrong when people were being recorded when they were on air? So what were the flaws or the challenges or the problems that you saw?
Well, like I was referring to before, if someone was particularly in a long, intense session, so even for radio commercials, we might have kind of a play written for a radio commercial, and it might be a 45-second spot, but it would take a lot of emotion and a lot of intensity from the performance. So if they were not taking care of their voice, if they hadn't rehearsed before we actually went to recording, and they were speaking again from the throat and constricting, nerves can really affect that too, can make constriction of your throat, and then you can lose your voice fairly quickly.
Wow.
So I guess that was probably the biggest issue that we would have when recording. Live, I didn't do a lot of live work to radio, but I do know, you can lose momentum. Momentum's the biggest thing. It's that continuity of performance, as we were saying before. If not just your sound, but the energy from your sound. So if your energy starts to fade off and your pace slows and the tempo changes of the voice, whether you be singing, speaking, whatever, that, and you're still doing the same performance, that can have an effect directly again on the engagement of the listener. So.
And I was going to say, because you two might have done this, or I might have just invented this and assumed everybody did it, but when you are doing some sort of presentation, I often mark the pauses.
Yes.
So there are no surprises. So when I deliver the same speech, I deliver it in the same way, because I've actually learned to, I actually mark the pauses, stop. Are you trained to do that as an actor?
Some scripts have it written in. Yeah, that's your beat, that's your silence. And I think I think you do this particularly well. Tara uses silence effectively. I mean, we're talking about voice, but the absence of voice is an incredibly powerful tool. So, and when you're nervous, the pause can feel enormous. But the reality is, an audience is always behind you, a listening audience or a viewing audience.
Absolutely.
So you can enjoy those silences and draw them out and see how long they last, because they can punctuate things and let the audience process so well.
It's funny you say that. The only reason I use pauses like I do, I think it comes from music, because I've always thought that music is defined by the space between the notes. So, and the great vocal performance happens from the space between the words, and marking that is quite significant. Did you actually mark it on the script as well, Liz?
We did. We would mark it on the script, but if recording is easier, because if the pause wasn't there, we'd put one in. We'd add a few beats, and it would make a difference to the delivery of the performance. So,
And should we just talk about the value too, because we're about to go to microphones, but for you and I, should we just talk about the value of a great vocal performance and just having to top and tail it rather than actually edit? So if someone can deliver pretty well live to a recording and there's no ums, ahs, so you've actually done your rehearsal and it's great. In the industry, we call this a top and tail. So you don't have to do any editing on the way through. So you've done 15 minutes of content, you've delivered that 15 minutes. So all we do as editors is create a beginning, create an ending, thanks for playing. So it's 15 minutes of content. It takes 17 minutes to edit. But if you've got someone who's making errors and stuff, how much would 15 minutes take to edit if you're a movie?
a couple of hours. Yeah.
So that's the difference of great vocal talent, because if you can do it live in one piece, you save everybody hours of our lives.
Yeah.
Should I move to microphones? This is my big obsession about how academics use microphones. So for both of you, how does the presence of a microphone transform a voice and the vocal performance, what's required of a person? So compared to a live performance, we might start with you, Tiff, because you obviously do both, and then we'll talk about the specificity of the microphone technically for Lisa. What happens when you're working with a microphone, perhaps rather than a live audience, or even a live audience with a microphone?
Right. Well, the microphone is wonderful because it is so incredibly intimate. I mean, when we all know when you're listening to a podcast, it feels like that person is speaking just to you, and you're here. I mean, the phenomenon of ASMR recently just shows you what a sensual experience listening is.
Yeah.
So as a person speaking into the microphone, what's really valuable, I think, is to have a very clear idea of who that one person is that you're talking to, and build a relationship by talking to that one person. Physically, it's useful to think that the microphone is like that person's ear. So you don't want to be bellowing into their ear. You want to be speaking specifically to them and giving them, because it's purely through sound, you're giving the audience the opportunity to create all the pictures in their head. So that means sometimes you need to actually use more pitch range in your voice because you're painting everything sonically. We're talking about text as music.
Yeah.
I often will, and I've done this in the studio, you score the piece by going, well, what's the top note? How can I make a point? Instead of getting loud, can I do that by being high? Or can I do that by slowing things down durationally? So those are some of the key things I would think about. And absolutely thinking about silence, the power of the silence in that relationship too.
Yeah. I love what you've said there. So really do treat them, it's an intimate relationship. So all of us, because we're used to lectures, our default are really lectures, of course, and so we're used to the big gestures. The moment a microphone's there, you are whispering in the ear of someone. So it's a completely different skill set. So Lisa, this is your business. What would you advise to people approaching that microphone? What does it do to your voice? How do you approach it?
Sometimes psychologically a microphone can intimidate people and exactly what Tiff was referring to before, make them feel that they have to start speaking like this because they need to somehow change their sound to be able to be heard and all that sort of thing. It doesn't have to happen like that. You need to find your voice, your clarity and your presence, but a microphone can pick up intimate sound. Can pick up, so if you wanted to take it, like you were saying, take it down a little bit and just start to, if you wanted to reflect across something that's got some emotion built into it, you don't have to project anymore. The microphone can pick those sorts of things up. The other thing a microphone can do, people can get in front of it too much, like get right up close, and you don't need to. It's designed to pick up ambient sound as well as directional sound. So let the engineer or let the person who's delivering the sound worry about whether it's getting the right amount into the microphone. And then I don't know, I think that being in front of a microphone can encourage someone to give a more enthusiastic performance because they don't, in a studio setting, they don't have an audience in front of them. They can speak to someone in their mind, like Tiff was just saying, and you can become a bit more theatrical and a bit more, it's almost like a caricature of a performance because you are delivering it sonically rather than visually. When I've done voiceover work, it's actually a really embodied experience. You actually have to be more physical in a way. Yeah. And also, I don't know if you've discovered this, I've discovered it the hard way. Sometimes if you're wearing the wrong jewellery, it can get picked up. Yeah. Sometimes if you're wearing the wrong fabric, nylon's not good because it gets the little hiss. So it's
a cruel fabric anyway, isn't it?
It is.
Look, and polyester, it's a disaster, isn't it? It's just avoid it. But it is about, I think someone taught me this 25 years ago, but it's about putting a tear in your throat.
Yes.
About putting emotion in your throat. So you feel it, but you're pushing it through your voice. So you've got to push it up. And breath is great too. I'm fascinated by microphones and breath.
Yeah.
So when I'm recording, I'm very comfortable with, maybe it comes from singing, but the breath is part of it as well. So, be very calm about breathing and putting that into the gig.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, another one.
Please.
The clicking of the mouth. Don't drink milk. Don't drink it flat white before you do recording because it gives that nasty...
And that's a mongrel to edit too. Cause you
can't get that out.
Well, you and then you have to get the digital...
You could shave the word off in the...
I think there's a technology for it now. I think
there is, but you've still got to go, it's like 1/8 of a second and it's like, it's very complicated. But the microphone, it is very intimate. It's a very special thing. And I agree with you. I do my recording very early in the morning and it's, when sort of your voice is really rough and ragged. And that's the voice I record. So when I do audiobooks, it's my 3 a.m. voice that I do.
I've often wondered, listening.
Yeah, so because I love that, because that's, you can actually, I almost hear the vocal cords rubbing at 3 a.m. in the morning because the voice is at its lowest. I don't know if that's actually, but certainly mine is much lower, many notes lower in the morning, and you can actually hear the mechanics of the voice, which I actually, on a microphone, which you can't everywhere else. The only thing I'd say, get your opinion on this, is I generally don't like my live performances recorded. It used to be a thing for me, I'm a bit calmer now, but because I argue that when you're doing a public gig, a performance in front of an audience, you're not focusing on the voice, you're focusing on gestures and the physicality and the physical audience. Whereas if it's being recorded, you've got that intimate relationship, you're focusing on the voice and the recording of that voice. So I think it's a different experience. Have you got an opinion on this, or am I just mad?
No, I think it is a different experience.
Yeah.
So you are, if you're performing, your voice is still there, but you are worrying about gesture and how you physically appear.
Yeah.
And so from a recording perspective, it can have an effect on the sound that's coming out. So the sound that you get in a studio or in a recorded session, not even necessarily a studio, is probably a bit more round, a bit more full.
Yeah. Because I'm just thinking
there isn't a lot of, you're losing breath.
Because you're using also you're using this microphone which is there, and they're very poor mics, I would argue.
Yeah.
Whereas actually the high quality microphones, you're focusing on an audience beyond the physical. Yeah. So I do think they're different techniques.
No,
so
I see what you're saying. Yeah, certainly like a live performance never is repeated or is never effectively recorded with one of these sorts of things. It's a live experience. It's a different thing. So if you're ideally planning to get that information disseminated to a wider audience,
do it for that.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know, something to think about, but it's always been my thing that people go, oh, look, we'll just record the live lecture, and I'm going, well, it's an analog experience for an analog audience. If you'd like a digital audience, let me do it digitally for you. Yeah. They're different. Let's talk about the next question, the pair of you. And you've mentioned already a few times, because you're fantastic on this. Let's talk about nerves. And I would argue, particularly for women, and I could be wrong, but when women are nervous, the first point where we see an issue is we hear it before we see it. So how are nerves managed in terms of the voice? Any vibe on this?
Oh, well, you want to go?
Well,
where do we begin?
Yeah, definitely nerves affect a voice. Nerves can make a voice shudder and not be able to be heard as well. Nerves can constrict the sound. So to combat that, I think there's a couple of different things, like rehearsing. Prior.
Prep.
Yeah, if you prep enough, and the more you deliver live performance, the more used to it you become. It's not like flying. The more I fly, the worse I get. But with a vocal performance of any description, whether it's been in front of a live audience or recorded, if you can practice before you get on there.
In the venue, if you can. Do yourself a favour. Get there the day before or a half an hour before. Just check out the acoustics. A really useful thing is to actually go into the audience and watch someone else doing it.
Yeah.
So you get an idea of where the dead spaces are, or oh geez, they're sort of disappearing in the space. So prep yourself in advance. And breath, I would say. So do a vocal warm-up in the car on the way.
Yawn.
Yeah, yawn. Read out the street signs as you go to get that happening. Over-enunciating is really useful because when I talk to my students, it's a bit like when baseball players are practicing before they go out onto the plate. They'll swing in the batter's cage with 3 bats so that when they get onto the plate, they've got 1, it's easy. Like the muscles are ready and dexterous and ready to go. So warming up all your muscles, especially your articulators, is so important.
Yes.
And then breathing before you start, just getting centered and dropping your breath. When you breathe deeply, let it expire. Wait for the impulse for the next breath, rather than which will just make you dizzy. But wait for the next impulse. The blood pressure drops. We get centered, and it's the same principle when you're in the performance. If you start to feel that nervous tremble, or you're getting too fast and take a breath. the audience will thank you for it, because then they have a chance to take a breath too and process what you're saying, and you'll have a new thought, you'll have a fresh thought.
Yeah, and if it helps you, and those of you that have seen me speak or see me speak shortly, because I think I'm doing a gig next week too, but I tend to, and you've probably wondered why I do this, when people are introducing me, I stand to the side. I don't sit down and get called up, I stand to the side, so I'm checking my entire body, that the body is upright and ready to speak, and I take 6 enormous breaths. So I'm watching the room in real time, I'm watching the person that's introducing me to see the strengths and problems with their vocal delivery in that space, I'm watching the audience, and I am physically ready to go when that introduction is concluded. So if you're sitting down or cramped or you're not sure how you're going to get out and do all that sort of stuff, stand and watch and wait, and then your body is in the place it needs to be for the voice when you stand. Hard to do it when you sit.
Totally.
Absolutely.
That's great. Another, can I just, one
Please.
little thing? So we do get, when we're tense, we start to tighten up our shoulders.
Yeah.
So a really useful thing just to do in the car or while you're waiting for your turn is tighten, you don't want people to see you probably, get your shoulders up to your ears as tight as you can, and then sigh, and just drop them. And do that a couple of times, and if you do that, like the little short one, and drop, that's probably where your shoulders were before you even started. That's how much they creep up, just from adrenaline.
Magnificent. If you're getting anything out of today, the voice comes from the body. The voice comes from the body. So get your body right and the voice will follow. And final point, we really need to finish here, and obviously we'll finish with Tiff, but please, if you've got things to do about that continuity of delivery and care, Lise, do talk about this. But should we talk a little bit about vocal health? Because I certainly found when we did that Horizon gig, there was lots of weird stuff happening there. So what's going on with people's voices, and how do you have a voice for your career rather than just 5 minutes?
Yeah, vocal health is a huge issue, especially for educators, and teachers have one of the highest rates of vocal damage around. Because they're coming from the throat here, and that can actually cause structural damage. You can cause vocal nodules, which are like calluses basically on your vocal folds. For most people though, vocal damage comes from lack of hydration and lack of rest. When we're tired, we put damage on our throats, and you can hear that, and everyone loses their voice sometimes with illness. It's okay. Don't worry. Worry is the biggest part of it too, is because we get tense and again stop breathing. So drink enough to pee pale.
I'm learning more today than I thought I would ever learn.
My classroom.
Pee health matters a lot.
Coughing is really not good for your throat because you're grinding your vocal cords. Better to gargle some warm water with salt water and a bit of baking soda just to clean the mucosal lining of the vocal folds. Ginger, honey, and lemon tea. That's what Andy Serkis used all through the creation of Gollum, which is one of the most intense voices you've ever heard. Ginger, honey, and lemon tea got him through those 3 films.
Because all of that's very crunched, isn't it?
It's
Very
right
crunchy
there. It's right there. Because ginger and honey are natural anti-inflammatories anyway, so they're doing all the soothing work for you. And rest. If you lose your voice, don't do a stage whisper. That opens and forces the voice open, the vocal folds open. Better, you need to be silent. You need to give yourself permission to be quiet and enjoy it while you can.
Yes.
We don't get to very often.
Wow. Anything you'd say, because did you see people straining? Because obviously the people you were dealing with, they were paid for their vocal delivery, so they pushed themselves.
Exactly what Tiff was saying. So if somebody came in to do a performance, we had a little kitchenette and they could make themselves a cup of tea, and tea like with no milk, just a nice pale tea, or a glass of water before a performance would always help to, you don't want to do anything to damage your vocal cords or to affect your performance. So nice warm tea tends to help loosen the vocal cords and things, but
Fantastic. How brilliant was this? I've learned things about bits of our body that I didn't know. I'm going to be yawning through much of the rest of the day. It was fantastic. Can I thank you both? You're both very dear friends of mine. I adore both these women. I learn so much from the pair of you, not only in terms of your expertise and your brilliance, but in terms of life, because these are very, very wise women. And
sorry.
They're both very, very wise women, and I learn a great deal, and you learn a great deal about credibility and authenticity, and I've learned a great deal about grace from these two women. So I thank them both for their incredible expertise, and I wish you all love, light and peace. Bye-bye.